Bueno, ahora vamos a seguir con la conferencia Building an Inclusive Future, Unlocking Educational Equity for All Learners, a cargo de Tahereh Pazouki. Ella es CEO y founder en Magritte Learning Solutions. Un aplauso para ella.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. I'm very glad to be here this afternoon and I wish we could discuss, but to talk about unlocking inclusiveness in early childhood education and to prepare the next generation, prepare a better next generation. So I'm Tahereh Pazouki, a researcher, entrepreneur. My background lies in computer science. I'm software engineer with the focus and specialty on data mining, machine learning, and also PhD in psychology, specialized in early childhood education and special education needs. I'm originally from Iran, and now I'm coming from Luxembourg. I grew up getting curious about how people learn after seeing my little brother, who has dyslexia, struggling at school. He could barely read until he was 10 years old. His teachers did their best, but they couldn't give him that one-to-one attention that he needed. As older sister, I took it on myself to take care of him. So I was helping him, making sure that he understands the concept and ideas in a way that he can perceive and convey that. I was helping him making drawings. I was also only 6 years older than him, so I was not an expert, but I just had this passion and I wanted to see him learning, being able to read, smile, catching up with his friend. And seeing all that was such a great joy for me that I decided to spend the rest of my life and to build my career in this field. But he was not alone. So actually, 1/3 of our population, or close to 1/3 of our population, they are dealing with one or other special education needs. And only with the population of children aged 3 to 10 years old, that's close to 240 million children worldwide. So you can imagine that the current teaching method, that is like we expect that one model fits all, is leaving significant number of children behind. That goes to children with migratory background, with hearing difficulties, language disorder, dyslexia, dyscalculia, in autism spectrum, ADD, ADHD, and it goes more and more and on. This group of children are at risk. The risk of obtaining poor educational foundation and lagging behind their peers, which can have a lasting impact throughout their entire life. So what can we do about it? How can we address this issue? How can we provide equal learning opportunities to this 1/3 of our population if we want to make sure that we have a better future? And also these numbers that I was showing you, it's growing every day, so the number is increasing, unfortunately. So I think we all know and we agree that we should start investing more and more in high quality, inclusive education to identify the needs of individual children at early stage and being able to provide them with intervention as early as possible to make sure that they get what they need to help them to an adult that they can accomplish, to help them living their dream. But how can we do about it? What can we do and how? So in this world that the advancement of technology is as speeding as the light, why not using technology and innovation in that way. But don't take me wrong. When talking about innovation and technology, I'm not talking necessarily about AI. So I'm a big fan of AI, but also whenever talking about technology is not necessarily equal to AI. It's important to use the existing technology in identifying individual needs for each children using data-driven approach to look at their data closely on daily basis, embedding assessment into the training programs to helping them to identify, first of all, where are the areas that they need more support, and then tailoring our training and also the teaching and learning curriculum based on their need. But of course, this is not easy and it can't be only done by teachers. So that's why we need technology to support that. This way we can make sure that we reduce the load for the teacher while supporting them with giving them insight based on this data that we are collecting in order to provide them with a better training. But just bringing technology and devices, hardware and software to the classrooms, it cannot solve the problem itself. We should be very mindful with using technology, especially when it comes to young children. As they say that with great power, it comes great responsibility, again, especially when it comes to young children. So there are major questions that are always existing when talking about technology these days and using it into our schools. First of all, it's the question of screen time. We all know that exposure to screen can reduce attention span and also has cause difficulty with concentration. And more importantly, this lack of communication can create difficulty in building social skills. So what should we do about that? So should we just simply avoid the screens in the classrooms? Or we can limit that, or make sure that we are using screens in the most effective and efficient way to get the benefits from technology, but not harming or affecting children's development, cognitive development. So research suggests that no screen time before age 2, up to an hour a day until age 5, and after that using technology very mindfully and in controlled way. And also prioritizing technologies that we are using in the classroom to make sure that they are age appropriate, and also those that are more in interactive way or working in collaborative way. And also, again, when it comes to AI, as much as it's powerful, there are still some limitations and drawbacks when it comes to AI. Simply, there is no transparency, or at least in the current existing solution, there is no transparency in sharing the data with the third party, or at least if we want to use it, we have to make sure that this part is clear so that there is no issue with data privacy. The other issue is the bias. So if the quality of the data for training the AI algorithm is not good, it can be easily biased. So using the data from Europe and then bringing the algorithms to Latin America, it's not going to work or work properly as we expect. And then the third issue, it comes with, so nowadays the way it's working is like the AI tools are working as a black box that we don't know how they are interpreting the data to get to the result. So until these basic issues are not solved, we should be very careful with using AI-based technologies in our classroom. Again, I'm a big fan of AI myself, but we have been slow with our education, so let's keep it slow until we are making sure that we are using it mindfully. But with all these requirements and all these existing solutions that are out there, how can we find the right tool to use in our classroom? How can we identify a correct technology for our children? A very simple answer to that, or the simplified version, is using evidence-based solution. So making sure that the solutions we are using in our classroom and for our children are based on latest research findings. They have been tested and validated by experts. So as simple as you wouldn't, like if you want to take a medication, you don't go for something that hasn't been undergone trials and testing. You also don't want to give your children a tool that has not been tested properly. So again, the easiest answer to that is to make sure that the solutions we are using are evidence-based to create this adaptive, efficient, and inclusive solution for children. And that's what we are doing in Magritte. So Magritte is a result of more than 6 years of research and development at University of Luxembourg, together with University of Tübingen in Germany and Lille in France. We created a deep tech pedagogical learning program for very young children for teaching, learning, and assessing cognitive skills and early mathematical skill in language-free and inclusive way. So this way we can make sure that it can be used by all children, including those with a special education need, by targeting from both design and content perspective, making sure that it's inclusive and can be actually beneficial by evidence and by showing the results that they are beneficial for children with a special need as well as the other group of children. So we have conducted so far 7 scientific studies in 4 countries and with more than 30 schools and 3,000 children just to test our solution and validate the solution. So these are not the numbers of users using Magritte, these are all the data we collected to make sure that the solution is effective. And it's not a one-time process. That's why we conducted 7 scientific studies. So moving forward with the development of the program, every time that we have new feature, new content, we again conduct a new study to make sure that it's continuously evidence-based and it's valid, and what we are giving to children, it's actually beneficial and it's not causing any harm to them. So as a result, we saw up to 70% improvement in wide range of skill sets related to cognitive skills, numerical skills, and also, more importantly, we could gain back, like children using Magritte, they could gain back their lost confidence, those that they were typically within unserved group of population, and also we had very high teacher interest using Magritte. So we found it, like we started the research in 2014, and only we released the product as a product in 2020. And until today, we didn't have a teacher or a child that they drop out of the program. So the churn rate is almost 0. And also we were fortunate to receive awards and recognitions internationally and repeatedly that proves again the effectiveness of the solution. So saying all that just to show that we can create actually solutions that are technology-based, not necessarily using AI, and to make it beneficial, make it inclusive and adaptive solution. So before I close, I wanted to, if you remember about my brother, so recently he graduated university and he's software engineer, and he's part of our tech team actually. And that's what we want to achieve, to make sure that equal opportunities for learning, it's actually not a luxury, but it's a human right. Thank you. If there are any questions, I would be more than happy.
Ahí está, ya. Thank you. I work especially with the children, and what the change we try to implement new methods is that we need to test then with the children to see if they work. But parents do not want their children to be like experiments. What advice can you give us to get that evidence?
You're asking how you can get the evidence? So,
Yes.
yeah, so nowadays there are existing some certificates because I understand that reading scientific studies are not easy. So there are existing some certificates that, like big organizations, they read all those scientific studies and then they give certificates or badge to the solutions that are actually based on research findings and are tested and validated properly. So you can either look if they had already scientific studies backing the effectiveness, or the easier version would be to see whether they already have certificates from organization. Again, similar to how you would look for a medication. So you don't need to go read all that literature. You whether see if they are certified or not, and that can give you that confidence that, okay, it's a reliable solution. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. I can imagine other entrepreneurs or investors are thinking 6 years is a very long time to test. What advice would you give to other people starting companies of how to survive that long and get the evidence without succumbing to the pressure of going to market and getting revenue and all those things?
Yeah, very, very good question. So I think we were privileged to have this time to invest on the research side, but the easier way to do it would be going to collaborate with universities or research institutes that they can then support you in that testing process. So while you are working on testing the market, testing the product, you can collaborate with experts that they test the product from pedagogical aspects and to provide you with feedback that you can further develop your product. If it's not now as effective, how can you further change the product to make sure that it's effective? So that's actually the relatively easier way, or onboarding an expert who did that previously. So that can show you how you can do it in a smaller step, starting small with relatively testing it just on a classroom or in a school, but doing it in a proper way. And that an expert can give you a good insight to that.
Well, thank you very much. You mentioned that your application is language free, and I wanted to ask you, how does it work, and especially what are the benefits, considering, well, that nowadays math problems are basically problem-based, and well, they usually include, well, language, and how can you work with that? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I mentioned we are based in Luxembourg. So Luxembourg is a very tiny country in West Europe that has very big challenges. So one of the major challenges in Luxembourg is that we have 5 formal languages: English, French, German, Luxembourgish, and Portuguese. So you can imagine that children, they go to school, they find a lot of difficulties. And more than 65% of children that they start schooling, they never heard the language of instruction before. So language of instruction at school is Luxembourgish, it's a language, and the majority of children, they never heard that language before. So we had and that caused major challenges for teachers, parents, students. We had different hypotheses that how could we solve this issue. One idea was to train children in the language of instruction, so training children Luxembourgish. The other idea was to train children in their mother tongue language, because there are several studies showing that children that they have a stronger mother tongue background, they learn a new language faster and better. And then the third idea was to create a training program that is language free. So we removed all verbal and written instruction and replaced them with visual material to create a fully visual learning program. And we tested all these three hypotheses separately on different group of children, and actually the third hypothesis, the training in language-free format, came as the most effective way compared to the other solution. So if you wonder how this can work, you can simply download Magritte application and give it a try.
Hello, thank you for coming to Colombia. Thank you for sharing this information. I want to know if you have ever tried this service in maybe Latin America or Middle East or maybe Far East, and which were the results that you had? Thank you.
Yes, so actually it's a pleasure for me to be here, and thanks for having me. But yes, so we have implemented Magritte now in 12 countries, in Europe, in Asia, and in Latin America. So in Latin America, we started in Luxembourg and then Portugal. From Portugal came Brazil, and Brazil opened the door to Latin America. So after Brazil, we went to Peru, and next week we are actually implementing Magritte in the very first school in Colombia, in Medellin. So the results, given that the solution is language free, so it doesn't matter where the child is coming from. We have children using Magritte in Vietnam, in Nepal, and also children using Magritte in Peru, in Colombia, or Brazil. And as I mentioned, we continuously doing this research. So now we are doing the research with the university in Brazil and also in Costa Rica, as well as universities in, again, Middle East, to make sure that always when we go to new markets, that the effectiveness of the solution stay the same. And when we want to get to some markets, this, let's say, evidence-based, it's a must. So for instance, when going to the US market, they require that certificate, the testing in US market. So now we are also, for instance, doing a research together with University of North Carolina to test the product specifically on children that are living in the US. But the reason, because the solution has been created based on research finding, and the way that we are cognitively developing and receiving and perceiving concepts, so we are not making the solution dependent on any curriculum. It's dependent on human development, and that's why the results stay more or less the same. So of course, within different population and learning background, the results are different. And what we see is that it's way more effective on children that are in the low socioeconomical status and those that they are typically within unserved population, because that was also the purpose, to serve this group. But yeah, the result stays more or less the same. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.